Hey, it's E.B. Moss, and this is episode 39 in season 2 of Insider Interviews with media, marketing, and advertising experts. And today, a couple of producers. The real, not AI, but the real Jim Mullen and Yossi Kimberg. Between the two of them, they have more cred than any other producers out there. We're talking Seinfeld to, well, where I worked with Jim, Food Network, Discovery, Super Bowl halftime show. These guys are the real deal, and we're going to talk about how soon AI will make things that look real, maybe not be real. Does that make sense? I don't know. Anyway, I love these guys, and I'll tell you that Jim is one of those triple threat people. He's a director, producer, writer, editor. I really want to thank him for upping my game with Insider Interviews. He's improved the look of it out of the goodness of his heart. So thank you, Jim Mullen of Mullen Media. And Yossi is a new friend of mine, and he is deep in there with AI. Just extraordinary what he's been able to teach himself, and now, thanks to Insider Interviews, hopefully teach others. So, just as the old ad used to say, is it live?
Or is it Memorex?
I don't know, but take a listen to what these guys know about AI.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Right.
Imagine you hit play on, your favorite show. And the very first voices you hear, the ones introducing everything, they aren't human at all. That's the, fascinating, maybe slightly mind-bending concept we're diving into today.
The world of AI-generated voices, it's moving so fast.
Exactly.
So I have to say that those two fooled me twice. Well, 1.5 times. What happened is I heard those two chatting on a client's website as if they had created this podcast without me after I'd pitched producing them one. And then a couple days later, I heard them on another company website, and I was like, wait a minute. And that's when I realized that those voices were a little bit too sanitized, as good as they were. But I figured it out when they started repeating phrases like, let's take a deep dive in, or let's unpack that. So I'm so glad to see you, Jim and Yossi, because you two are expert producers. You have dived in to the world of AI, but you're really like the boots on the street. And I wanted to chat with you about your experiences when you use AI generated assets, when you're just pissed off by them, when you want to steer clear. So thanks for joining Insider Interviews.
Thank you, Evie.
So, Jim, I want to start with you. I know you better. You've had a really incredible journey. I knew you when we worked together at Food Network, and you were the director, writer, producer there at Discovery Networks. You moved on to produce like huge shows like the Tony Awards, and thank goodness you kind of started focusing on post-production, because thank you, Jim Mullen and Mullen Media, you kind of upped my podcast game.
Happy to help.
Yeah, well, you're going to be producing this episode, dude, so no pressure. So Jim has really wowed me. I know about him, but Yossi, drop some names. Wow the listeners. I know you've done some amazing things, because Jim calls you the Fran Lebowitz of the editing world.
That's
for the past 45 years.
Jim never calls me. That's the sad part of it. He hasn't called me a lot. This is the first time I'm talking to Jim in about 10 years. It's very sad.
But does he ever call?
He never calls.
You never call, you never write.
So going back more recently, I worked with Seinfeld for about 10 years. Worked on his specials, Netflix specials, and worked on a show called Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee.
We know it.
And that was fun. And then for 34 years, I worked for Lorne Michaels' company called
Heard of him.
Broadway Video, wearing the T-shirt, which Jim loves. And that was fun.
Let me ask you something, because you teed this up. give us the shining stars about AI, or more so, because it's pretty recent, how you started delving into AI. How have you used it so far?
So I got into AI because I'm a curious person, and I love the technology, and I love the progression of the technology. I think what I did first was actually get into a application called Leonardo, which gives you free credits every day. And that whole idea is that they entice you into using it so that you can actually learn from it. And so that really whet my appetite, and I started creating images, still images within the application.
Like the thing where people accidentally have 6 fingers?
True. Early
Yes.
on,
Okay.
that was an issue. Exactly. So I got into it by learning how to write a prompt. And again, very simple, very primitive. But the idea that a text generates an image was beyond imagination. I was very just amazed by it.
Instead of pictures worth 1,000 words, it's
1,000
10
words.
words is worth a picture now. Yeah.
Yes. So let's talk specifically about something really cool that you then progressed after using text to describe a picture. Then what?
Well, the next magic that I wanted to play with was motion. So creating stills was fun enough.
Right.
But all
The
this
gateway drug.
the gateway drug, exactly, very enticing. Exactly, it's a great high, by the way.
Yeah.
And these companies like ChatGPT, like Leonardo, like all these other, Midjourney, were just developing really quickly, very quickly, and migrating into motion from stills. And that was like the next level magic that I thought was just incredible. And started creating, little 10-second vignettes, initially of me as an editor in different environments. That was my playful thing.
What does a video editor do on New Year's Eve?
Maybe it's much.
There is a technology called face swap. So I would generate a still. I would call it an editor on the moon, sitting on a desk and editing comedy.
Yeah.
And then I would take my face and place it on this individual and take that, bring it into a motion application, AI, and create movement.
Well, I've done things like that too, and I got called out for putting my head on J-Lo's body, but
there you go.
I guess that's a little different. And it also is reminiscent of lawyers who turn themselves into cats.
I can hear you. I think it's a filter.
It is, and I don't know how to remove it. I've got my assistant here. She's trying to, but I'm prepared to go forward with it.
But then I think you worked on what we call a package, right? Which is a promo campaign, if you will, for Scholastic. And that sounded really interesting. Tell the audience about that, Yossi.
Well, it started in 1937 when it was just a concept.
Okay.
So these particular packages are screened in front of a live audience. And essentially they highlight the work of kids who excelled in the art, and then they're being given an award. So initially we did stills, just a little movement on the stills. I would do little cutouts in Photoshop and kind of play with it a little bit, just give it a little more playful sort of perspective rather than just having a bunch of stills, one after the other. And then I suggested to my client, why don't we introduce AI for this mix and see if we can actually bring the stills to life and make them move. And so the painting of 2 girls holding hands in the beach all of a sudden became 2 girls holding hands running on the beach with the wave cascading on their feet.
Wow.
And the wow factor is just amazing. And that, my client was also like, I can't believe you did this. I can't believe this is actually happening.
What tool did you use for that particular?
I used 2 tools. I used Kling 1.6 and Hicksfield. Most of these applications offer several tiers of quality. I used the medium quality, not even the highest quality, just because I was trying to economize, because it costs money to use these things. Not a lot of money, but it costs a little bit. And even though I used the medium, low to medium tier, it still gave me amazing results. I can't imagine what it would be like if I used the higher tier with the with more details, more. So yeah.
Agree.
Yeah.
You know, I referenced the little faux conversation that kicked off this episode, and I did that in about 2 seconds flat for my first time trying to use Notebook LM to generate that conversation. And there are other tools like Wondercraft and many out there that will allow you to do much more specific voices. And you know, you cloned yourself in videos. I can clone my voice, and when I have a cold, use that for my podcast. But this is very real right now. Jim, let's move over to you for a second. What was your foray into using AI as a producer, editor guy?
I've only sort of, compared to Yossi, seriously just dipped my toe. I've been using 11 Labs for voiceovers.
It's pretty amazing, either the text to voiceover, or you can supply a
scratch voiceover and it will turn it into the British country gentleman, the
Southern earnest, common type.
Rachel, the enthusiastic voiceover. I mean, the evolution is
dramatic, right? It's not Moore's Law anymore. It's not 18 months before we double our capacity. Like, this stuff is day by day.
Yeah. And I really feel like this stuff is, a lot of these things are like just that much away from being really great. Like we're feeding voiceovers into 11 Labs, and we had to say that New York City has book deserts, and there's this organization that's trying to fill the book deserts. Mm-hmm. Couldn't get it to say deserts. It kept saying New York City has book desserts.
Desserts.
And no matter how many S's you put in, or if you phonetically spelled it DEH-ZERTS or something, I could not get it to say deserts. It was always desserts.
Thank God.
So I feel
there
like
might still be a role for me.
That's what I'm saying. So I feel like a lot of these are, and what Yossi's talking about, like the cling and everything, are just way above there. But a lot of these applications are just like this far from really putting an awful lot of people out of work.
I recently watched, I forget the name of the application, it might have been Google. It actually, going back to video rather than audio, is the ability to create now a complete scene with wide shots, close up, mid shot, and cutting between them within one generation. Meaning you can actually tell specifically, create this woman, she's running in the field, she hears a noise, she turns around, and she sees something else. All those descriptions, it's not just one image now. Now it's a bunch of images, and this application will cut it for you. We are not just very close, we are there.
We're there.
In terms of replacing and doing and, cloning not just voice, but cloning images. I recently read a legal brief on this whole AI thing regarding the use of images that are copyrighted. Mm-hmm. For example, the idea of resuscitating celebrities that have passed away. Mm-hmm. And using their images and their character in creating new movies. Steve McQueen came up as a character, and his estate is now going to be leasing his character for an AI creation of a short.
Yes. That's
dramatic and featured. And so again, everything is getting, and it's really moving very quickly.
I'll add a link to, in the show notes, to a previous episode I did about legal opinion on creation of AI-generated items, and can they be copyrighted and things like that. So how do we move away from the fear of AI and look at it less as a threat and more as something that's going to help us save money and bring what's in our heads onto the screen or into our ears.
Publications like the New York Times are really, they've taken this on to cover this topic pretty well. There have been a whole series of articles recently about where AI is going and about the superintelligence centers that are being built and whatnot. And some of the stuff that you're kind of gleaning is like you could be a coder, but AI knows how to write code now. So now you're managing different AI prompts that are writing the code. Mm-hmm. And I think that's how it's going to evolve. So Yossi may be a world-class editor, but he may be using these tools and now he's supervising the edit as opposed to actually clicking, mark in, mark out, insert, and whatnot. There's absolutely going to be replacement, but then also for us adapting, there has to be people that manage this process.
Yes.
Like we haven't quite got to the matrix part yet. Like somebody still needs to manage the process, adjust the prompt, check the results, make sure they're all accurate. It's like the briefs that were submitted to the court that referenced court cases that never even existed.
Right. Because
they had AI, generate the briefs.
Right.
So there still has to be somebody doing that. And so I think our job is going to be pivoting from like you said, boots on the ground to kind of now the AI is going to be the boots on the ground and they're going to have people manage it, make sure the results are copacetic, QC everything.
You're going to be the wranglers. Yossi, anything to add to that?
Well, I wasn't sure what you meant by fear. I mean, is it fear of losing their...
Really?
Well,
because it writes better than I do already, and I'm a writer. Those two voices voice better than me, and I'm a voiceover talent. I'm fearful.
The fear of losing your job, is that the fear that you're talking about?
Yes, and my ability to have my thumbprint on creativity and all of that. You're not fearful at all.
Well, I'm not, because I'm older and sort of not really worried about it. And also, I embrace AI as a tool that I can use. I don't fear it. So for me personally, the fear factor is not there. As far as out there, I mean, AI is a huge leap in technology. It's, it's as big as the Industrial Revolution, or as big as or computing, or, it's a huge leap in every aspect of life. I think it's going to be a situation where, because it's intelligent, it's going to learn how to be funny. It's going to learn how to be dramatic. It's going to learn how to be emotional without us actually teaching it. Because the idea of artificial intelligence is that it learns by itself. And so I think that we're going to be in a situation where humans will have to do other things other than entertain. Because the entertainment is going to fall with... for now, I agree with Jim that for now it's still it's not exactly, ironed out. But I mean, essentially 2 years from now, 3 years from now maybe, I think that our job, even as managers, is going to be done.
Yeah. Well, again, I'll use the word wranglers. So you mentioned earlier that prompt writing, of course, is going to be a key skill. And Jim, you've said that voice actors are already in the first crosshairs. What are the other folks that you're thinking of in order of impact? Who's feeling it next, and what opportunities do you see?
I honestly think editors are definitely right out there, because if you can feed a bunch of footage and the AI learns a sort of logical sequence based on all this different intelligence that it's received, that's certainly up there. I think the residual or like secondary is if we have less shoots, because we have AI actors and AI voices and everything else like that, then all the other production positions will see it fall off, but not a replacement. So we're always going to need live cameras somewhere. But if somebody makes a commercial out of pure AI, which is already happening, I don't want to name the company, but I see it on cable all the time, and it's pure AI. That means they didn't have to shoot that lady in her living room talking to her friend about the blinds that she just bought. You know what I mean? Right. So That's going to be the secondary sort of residual. Is there's not as many hair makeups, there's not as many shoot days, grips, and gaffers, and everything else in between.
Site surveys, home rentals, all of that.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's all going to be done. It's all going to be done within the box. In other words, you can actually generate interviews, generate whatever it is you need to generate. You can build huge sets at no cost or very little cost in the box.
Okay, now this couch, it's fine, but it's a little monotone. Morgan, can you make it a little more interesting? Maybe give it a contrasting red, maybe? Perfect.
All the stuff that we're talking about, the lighting and all of that is going to be supplemented within the applications.
Morgan, could you go ahead and turn down the kitchen light in the background? Now we created more mood. That's great.
But it is in the infancy of its journey. But as I said, I think within 2 or 3 years, 5 years at the most, it'll be very, very sophisticated.
Yeah, I think it's well past infancy and into at least toddler stages. And, this has become really ubiquitous. And I think that part of the fear is just this sort of loss of humanity. Like, can we relate as well to AI generated characters now that there's full motion video and waves are now crashing that had come out of a still image? Do you know what I mean?
I saw an interesting interview recently with a human being about the advent of this magic that we're talking about here, this motion magic of AI, doing all the work, doing all the editing and the production and the shooting and all that. And because it is so, it's so much everywhere in this day and age. When you see it in TikTok, in social media, pretty much you're going to start seeing it on the air, on broadcast and everywhere else. It's becoming, there's a certain fatigue that sets in where initially there was this moment of, wow, I can't believe this is happening, to the point now where people are starting to see, oh, this is another magical thing. Who cares? So I think there's a sort of a fatigue that's built into AI that people don't talk about, which is too much magic.
So, I think we're also going to face exhaustion from disclosures because it'll just be ubiquitous.
That's very true.
It feels like an Escher painting. Everything's chasing everything.
I mean, I think the big picture is really, does anybody care? And it's really going to be something that is going to be up to the titans of the technology to, create and make judgment calls about what do we do with this AI thing. It is moving really quickly. And, how do we make sure that people understand that this is just generated and it's not real?
Yeah, exactly.
Just
Jim, what do you think?
A specific reference to that, if you go on TikTok and Instagram and follow sports, they give post-game press conferences, the players. And, I used to watch them for the Phillies and the Eagles and all like that. And then you go on Instagram and then you see what looks like a real post-game press conference. And then the quarterback starts deriding his own self, his play, talking about his team.
You can't speak to Aaron Rodgers, got a football like that. I did my job, but my teammates sucked. Garrett Wilson couldn't catch to save his life. He caused 2 interceptions where I hit him right in his hands.
It's obviously AI, but I mean, the picture is so real, his mouth is so real, and it's like, that's where it's going to be like, did he really talk about his team that way? No, of course he didn't. It must be AI. I mean, that's where, honestly, it's a low-stakes game. It's not politics. But, that's where the kind of like believability, am I really trusting what I'm seeing, is coming from.
Exactly. And then name, image, likeness, and...
And the deniability, the ability to say, I didn't say that, or I didn't do that, is really sort of one of the downfalls of this technology.
So let's go back to your respective sweet spots as producers. How do you maintain authenticity and storytelling when you're using synthetic voices? How do you balance that veracity so that it doesn't look like a talking head, or just maintain the humanity?
I could just answer it real quick because that's very relevant to what I just did, which is these packages that I just spoke about. What I didn't say earlier was that essentially when the client looked at it and loved it, his clients started to say, we can't have all this AI in here because this is not what these kids did. I wanted to make a kinetic version of it by making it more interesting for the audience that was sitting and watching it. The client said, well, you're doing injustice to these work of arts. And so what they did is taken away some of the stuff I did, and put back the stills as stills.
I think that's fascinating.
Yeah.
What's happened more now with social media and influencers, there's huge pushback from things that have gotten too sanitized and too perfect. And so the trust factor is exponentially increased when the influencers, you can see zits, or you can see frizzy hair, you can see, whatever it is. And so we're trying to find more authenticity, more humanity in that. So I'm guessing as producers, you're going to have to not airbrush things, except for me, Jim, just a reminder. Filters. You're going to have to maintain some veracity through not over filtering things. Yeah?
I think there will be pushback eventually when AI gets a little too much chutzpah, too much in your face, and be too slick. There's always this sort of like pendulum where trends become trends, and then people step back and they really, really they're hungry for the previous trends. And that's true for cars. That's true for vinyl is coming back.
Yeah.
Many technology. And I think once you reach that magical point in AI where it is so slick, to your point about makeup and all that people are going to say, we're missing that human element. Let's go back and start hiring actors. Let's make it real.
Yeah, I love that point, Yossi. And I love the example of going back to vinyl. You can hear some of the imperfections through using that.
And so I think people are going to do that with AI as well. It's going to be, there will be sort of a hunger for making things the way they used to be when everything was so simple and, and comfortable. So
a nostalgia trend. Yeah. Nostalgia for reality.
Correct.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to end on one note of advice. You guys have your hands on some interesting tools. Jim, you mentioned 11 Labs. Yossi, what are some of your other drugs of choice these days in utilizing AI?
I pretty much stick to the basics, to the garden variety, which is Runway, Kling, Xfill, a little bit of Midjourney for stills. I haven't embraced VO3 yet because it's expensive. It's about $245. I think it's $250 a month.
Wow. What does it do?
A VO3 is used for actual video with dialogue.
12 colors for every occasion.
So it's the only one right now that's out there for dialogue-driven video. I mean, the other application I just spoke about, Runway, Kling, and Xfill, which is the one I used, do video, but no sound.
Oh, I see.
But they will very soon. They're all moving in the same direction. It's just, it's a horse race, and it depends on who gets there first. So, I mean, as Jim says, every day, every week, somebody else comes up and does something better.
And Jim, if you're talking to a mentee in production, someone coming up today, what are you loving using and what are you advising them on?
Not necessarily any specific programs or sites, but what I would say to them is, Yossi had mentioned that a lot of these places run on credit basis. So you have to gauge how many credits you really need for whatever project you're doing, but beware of one-note trumpets, one-trick ponies. So, I mean, there's sites out there that are like, you could buy this many credits and make your cat sing. Well, the picture of my cat is only going to be able to sing 3 different songs.
Right.
So just like Experiment, they offer it all for free. Even if you get watermarked footage off of it, just allowing you to experiment with it. But there's so many sites out there that are really just one-note trumpets. And the major players will jump out at you. You know, you can recognize the ones that are for real and they're really changing how production works. And the other ones that are just like gimmicks, nice happy birthday cards for people, you know, things like that.
And the good thing about experimenting, what the fact is that every application has a certain strength in certain things with certain scenes. Some applications are really good when it comes to locations and sceneries and close-ups and emotional stuff. And so every application has its strength. And so the whole idea is to really write a prompt and then apply it to different applications and see what they come up with.
I think that we're going to have this conversation again in 6 months, and everything will be drastically different. And
it will be. Yeah.
It's incredible. Yeah. But for now, I really want to thank you both for giving us a little bit of insights in terms of what it's like behind the scenes, making the magic, and all of the different tools at your disposal, and how you have to wrap your head around all of this as producers with huge pedigrees, you guys. Thank you very much for joining on Insider Interviews.
Thank you.
Thanks, Abby.
Well, I hope you got some good insider scoop from this episode of Insider Interviews with me, E.B. Moss. If you enjoyed this content, please feel free to buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/mossappeal. And I hope you'll follow Insider Interviews on social media and let me know if you have a question or a suggestion for a next stellar guest in media, marketing, and advertising. Speaking of stellar, my theme music was composed and performed by the incomparable Grammy-winning John Clayton. If I can help you with your company's podcast, please find me at mossappeal.com. Thanks again for listening.